The Business of Agriculture podcast is brought to you by Land Trust. Did you know sportsmen spend over $5 billion annually in hunter and angler access fees? Land Trust is a platform that connects sportsmen with farmers and ranchers like you who have untapped profits just by providing access to their land. Go to landtrust.com/BOA, as in Business of Agriculture, to see how much you might add to your bottom line.
Greetings. Hey, welcome to the Business of Agriculture podcast, a very big one. In fact, this is the 200th episode. Did you hear what I just said? The 200th episode of the Business of Agriculture podcast. Been going now for 4 years. The Business of Agriculture podcast is not only available at Stitcher, iTunes, and SoundCloud, or wherever you get your audio podcast. It's also available on YouTube. Go to the Damian Mason channel. Simply log on to YouTube, type in Damian Mason channel, and please hit subscribe while you're there. A big day because, again, 200th episode, and I've got a great show for you. We're going to talk all about seed. I have Greg Fonger, Eric West, and Tracy Harmon. They are with the FS system. I'm coming to you from Southern Illinois, West Central Illinois, if you will. And we're going to be talking about the seed business, the seed industry, the evolution of it, what's happened, the consolidation, the genetics, the amazing amounts of technology, and what the thing looks like moving forward. Are we going to just log on and buy our seed? Is it going to be delivered to us by drones? Are we going to use less of it per acre, more of it per acre? What is happening in the business of seed? Because remember, everything in agriculture starts with the base material, soils, water, sunshine, but then you've got to put something in the ground to make it grow, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's start here with my girl, Tracy. Tracy Harmon, tell us a little bit about your role, because you've been in the seed business for about 5 years, prior to that, crop protection, right?
That's correct. So I am a field sales agronomist with Growmark. I cover 10 counties in the south central part of Illinois. So my role is to help the FS crop specialist learn about our seed and make good sales proposals to help growers be more profitable. Okay,
so you were in crop protection, and then you moved over to just seed about 5-6 years ago, you told me, and you're in your mid-30s. So you've been in ag, you were raised on a farm, and then you came into this out of college, and you have a master's degree in something, agronomy?
Yeah, plant and soil science.
Okay, so this is your thing, and you're all about it. Eric, real quickly, what do you do?
I'm the senior product manager for Growmark Incorporated, so I'm just coming up on 20 years in the system. So it's about half that time I was actually at the member company level as a crop specialist. And then, like I said, the other half have been a field sales agronomist, and then going on the 6th year of product management. So.
Product manager, so just so that the person understands, because we're not going to, there's a bazillion brands, but there's less than there used to be. But you have an in-house brand, and you have corporate brands that you also deal with throughout your system. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yep, so my direct responsibilities is being in control or managing our house brands. So when you think of our FS Envision, FS High Soy, FS Inspire Wheat brand, and then our FS Forage brand. So that's my team. We control that. We select the products and what goes into those brands. At the same time, we have system-supported partners. So it'll be the Bear Camp with DeKalb and Asgrow, and then also Syngenta with NK Corn and NK Beans. So really, when we're out and about, we're representing our house brands, but also those two companies as well.
Got it. And then my man Greg, machinery, was in the machinery business, made a switch to seed. Tell us about your role here.
So I'm the sales and marketing manager for Growmark Seed Division. Been in this role for about 4 years. So sales and marketing, I've got all the field sales agronomists report up through me, and so we cover there's 30 FSAs, and so we're covering
you know what that word means? Not anybody listening to this knows what that means.
FSAs, field sales agronomists. Basically, if you think about it, what most companies are used to would be a district sales manager. So we call ours FSAs.
There you go. Vernacular.
So we're covering Illinois, Iowa, Wisconsin, part of Missouri, part of South Dakota, a little bit in Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Kentucky.
Okay, that's exactly why I wanted to make sure that we get this on. On the Business of Agriculture podcast, we don't get into simple stuff. We try to be big stuff, big picture business stuff. And we're not talking about, hey, I planted this seed here back in my backyard, which is a cool thing. We're talking big picture here. So that's why, dear listener and viewer, I thought this would be a great lineup, because we've got the 10-county level, we've got the product and seed brand level, and we've got the overseeing the 14 states, I think you just named right there, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so 14 states. So let's go back to Eric for right now. Brands. Let's talk about the basics. There's less of them than there were when I was a kid, but there's still plenty. Yep. Talk to me.
Well, I think everybody in the seed business realizes there's a lot of competition, a lot of competitors. If you go out and talk to growers, there's multiple growers will tell you, right, they can get hit on anywhere from 3 to 6, 7 different seed companies. They might even get called on maybe 1 or 2 when it comes to crop nutrients, crop protection. But the seed business is competitive. Yes, there's been consolidation, but there's still a lot of regional brand companies to go along with the national brands.
Yeah, so there's still plenty of seed. And, even when we talked about supply chain issues, like what was going on, I know that some crop protection stuff, maybe Tracey's a good example of this because she's with the boots on the ground right there. Did you have customers that were going without, I heard that there's going to be maybe some crop protection chemicals that we just weren't going to get because of supply chain issues.
That is correct, yes. There were definitely supply chain issues with some specific herbicides.
Did you have customers that went without?
Not that I believe, but people had to make changes.
Yeah, so they couldn't use the product that they wanted to use. They had to find some other thing that might work, kind of works, does work. Okay.
Yep.
Did anybody go without seed?
No.
Okay. So the point is, we maybe had some fungicide shortages, but there's no seed shortage is what I'm hearing.
Correct.
All right. Now answer me this. Isn't it pretty much, Tracey, all the same? I mean, let's face it. Different label on the bag, but what the hell? It's all just a bag of corn, am I right?
That's incorrect.
All right. Give me the scoop. Tell me the difference.
So there are...
100 years ago, we hybridized corn, and we got really good at making corn. And then pretty much since then, it's just been coast, right? Like the stuff's pretty much the same.
Not exactly. Not exactly. So there are some big differences in genetics and traits specifically. So when it comes to corn hybrids, you have multiple trait packages that you can choose from, and definitely differences in genetics.
So my friend that lives in Evanston, Illinois, that is my roommate in college, he keeps up with ag because of me, but he's going to be wondering what we're talking about right now. Let's just talk about what happens, a bag of seed today compared to even when I was there on the dairy farm in the 1980s. Triple stack, quad stack. Explain what that means, because just pretend that we got a listener right here that grows cranberries in Wisconsin. Is like, I never got into soybeans and corn and wheat and hay. Tell me about that.
Okay, so from the genetic side, it's pretty simple. That's just, the features and benefits that come along with the male and female plants. On the trait side, however, that's where we start looking at integrating differences to specific herbicides so that the plant can tolerate applications of herbicides that are not natural, as well as different insecticide traits. So it gives protection against specific insects that's already bred into the plant, which actually reduces the amount of insecticide use during that crop season.
The average person lives in the suburbs of Phoenix, where I live half the year, says, "Oh, those awful GMOs." And I said, "Do you even know what that means? Explain what we're talking about." Using either corn with like a cutworm would be a good example about the genetic engineering we did and how it actually reduced our need to use pesticide.
Okay, so
you're the one with the master's degree.
I know, yeah. I was a herbicide person, but that's okay. So years ago, we had issues with specific insects. You mentioned rootworm. Excuse me. So rootworm is a good example, and so the best way to protect against rootworm was at planting, and so you could either use insecticide at planting, or we looked at altering the genetic makeup, inserting a specific trait into the hybrid so that it's naturally protected against the insects, which reduces the need to use the actual insecticide.
So when we talk about triple stack and quad stack and all that, what does that mean to the person that's like, man, this is a little bit intimidating, all these terminologies that we're talking about with corn? What's it mean?
That's a good question.
Perfect.
Because
we're going to give it to Greg because he's the salesperson. All right, triple stack, quad stack, what are we talking about?
So it's the number of traits that are stacked on top of each other. So a triple stack would have different traits for rootworms and then different traits for different above ground pests. So there's 3 different traits stacked on top.
So
on top of each other.
we've genetically engineered that into, for instance, a corn and a kernel of corn, and now we use less pesticide because of those traits. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So tell me, you've been selling this stuff, compared to when I was a kid. What's the difference? Besides those things, that's a big one. Productivity, yield,
correct.
Price costs a hell of a lot more.
It does. It does cost a lot more. Yeah, that's right. And please keep doing that.
Bag of corn. Just because the person listening to this right now says, you know what, man, I don't really buy seed corn. So how much is a person out here in Illinois paying for a bag of your, just I know it's varying, but give me a number.
So if you're talking a double stack, which is only above ground pests, probably in the neighborhood of $2.75 a bag, and a bag of corn is going to cover roughly 2.3 acres.
There you go, perfect.
And then if you're going fully traded with below ground to get yourself your rootworm protection as well, you're probably $100 more than that, probably $350 to $375.
Okay, $350, $375 to cover 2.2 acres. So doing the math, to plant a acre of corn, not counting diesel, time, insecticide, or herbicide, or any of those things, return on your equipment, you're still talking about $125 to $140 per acre just on seed.
Yep, that's fair.
Okay. All right. So obviously the stuff has to be good. Tell me the difference between now and when I was out there on that dairy farm toiling away in 1985.
So I think the performance is the big thing. I mean, I don't know how far back you would look, but every year the genetic rate of gain, we're about 2.5 bushels probably a year improvement in yield.
And that's on corn. Let's talk about soybeans. How much we're grabbing another bushel per year on average on soybeans? If you look at realizing there's going to be outliers.
Yep. The trend line is probably going to be right around a bushel, maybe just a tick below a bushel on soybeans. Mm-hmm. If I look at corn, and I was actually just talking to one of my college roommates today, and we grew up in central Illinois, good deep soils,
Basically, you don't have to be a good farmer in Illinois because you've got amazing topsoil. You can just throw it out the window and then go into the diner and talk about how hard you work. I mean, that's what you can do in Central Illinois, right?
And what time you get up.
Yeah, right.
So in Central Illinois, in a lot of instances, yes, it's very forgiving soils. But where my college roommate lives now in southeastern Illinois, it's not as forgiving. But he was just commenting, the performance now, hybrids down there are making what hybrids make in good, deep, dark soils in central Illinois.
Yeah.
You can get 260, 270 bushel corn in not ideal environments where 30 years ago you were hoping for 120.
And we're talking about product. Let's pass it over to Eric because I think that's exactly right. My ground in Indiana, let's say behind my house, is Indiana average. It's got some curve. I mean, meaning it ain't the greatest stuff, but it ain't the worst stuff. It's not full of rocks, and it's not terribly shallow. And we've tried to do the right things, but it's got some sand in the topsoil horizon, and it's real tight in the subsoil horizon. It's got some curve. It's had some erosion that we've been fixed, since I bought it. But it still performs because of the technology and because of the stuff. That's a very, very good point, that average ground now performs the way really good ground performs better still. But yeah, we've brought average up because of the technology. You attribute seed. It's not about tillage. It's not about better tractors. It's not about better GPSs. Give it to me, to Eric.
Well, I think there's benefits to everything you just mentioned, but there's no doubt when you look at the breeding, right? The breeding enhancements over the years, the technology. Mm-hmm. You think of all the big, I call it the genetic originators in the industry. The genetic originators, right? The breeding techniques they're using, the technology, the advanced analytics that they use. You're going to learn a lot. It used to take 10 years, right? 10 years at earliest to find out about a hybrid. This technology is enhancing that. Yep. The nice thing is you're getting multiple looks. The way they're set up and the way they're doing environments and greenhouse, everything else, you're be able to put different environments in there. So you're talking about those tough acres and getting performance. That's all attributed to really behind the scenes of the genetic gains we're seeing because of technology.
All right, so the person that doesn't really understand how the seed works, since you're the product guy, South America, these companies are doing stuff across the equator to make sure that then they're basically getting two seasons every season. Talk a little bit about what happens, how we've made these amazing gains on the product.
Yep. Well, you talk about South America, and South America has been absolutely critical in the seed business. You look at that genetic gain and being able to, I look at our brands, being able to bring on new products. And we'll take an example, a new technology, XtendFlex trait technology. In order to get that to the farm and show people the value right at year one.
XtendFlex trait technology.
Yep.
All right. What are we doing with that now?
Well, that's how we call it the sort of the triple stack of the bean wort, right? That's that soybean variety that brings tolerance to glyphosate, glufosinate, and dicamba.
Okay, so we plant this seed, and then we can use those three herbicides to go out there and spray the field. So why is that a benefit? Because the person says, I don't know why they're spraying all that. Why are we doing it that way?
It's because when Greg was talking about our geography, the big geography we have, there's many areas that have weed control issues, right? Some of them, maybe the Roundup resistance, they're having issues. Maybe it's, on certain chemistries, it allows growers to have that flexibility. So if they want to go out in a certain area and they can get by with Liberty, glufosinate, and spray that's fine. Maybe some areas they need that dicamba. They need it as a burn down opportunity, or they just need it as an early post application to control like a palm or any of those hard to control weeds. So it gives really good flexibility for growers, and growers have choices on what herbicide program they want to apply over it.
And to the person that says, but my neighbors in suburbia told me that those terrible GMOs just mean they're spraying chemicals on them. Are we using more chemicals on soybeans today than we did when I was a kid?
I'd say for many factors, it'd still be less. And I take that when I started in the business, and I was down in actually Tracys part of the world and a lot of conventional beans, and we were throwing 5-6 different chemistries on those acres. So now if we can go buy maybe 2 chemistries, with a good burn down program and come back, it'd be less chemistry now than what it was when I started 20 years ago.
Sure, and I've pointed that out from the time when I was a kid. The idea that somehow we're using, it's ridiculous. We used a hell of a lot of stuff, and we burned a lot of diesel. We used to drive over that ground a lot back then. Let's talk about, we talk about the product, we're talking about the geography. Let's talk about where you are. Tracy's out there covering 10 counties. She's got people. All right. I've got the internet. I got my cell phone, my smartphone. I can log on there and I can answer questions. Why do I need you to sell me seed?
So the seed industry is pretty complex.
Can't I just go online and buy it, Tracy?
Actually, you can now. That did become an option a few years ago. We have not really, it kind of made a splash initially, but we really haven't seen that market segment grow. And I think one of the biggest reasons,
market segment meaning online purchase of seed,
correct,
hasn't gone. It's not become Amazon.
Correct.
We're not putting Sears out of business.
Not currently, no.
Okay, so talk to me.
So I think one of the biggest reasons for that is what I see locally in my area is that seed is still fairly relationship based, meaning that the farmer purchasing the seed likes to know who he's purchasing it from. Mm-hmm. He likes to have the personal touch. He likes to know that whoever is recommending the seed has his best interest in mind. And so I think this concept of just buying a bag of seed isn't caught on yet. And a big reason for that is because I think farmers still look for guidance. There's a lot of options. I mean, we talked about several of the genetics and traits and all the different options out there. And I think that farmers really like to have a second opinion and have someone that's really working with them to make good decisions.
But you're also making money off them selling that seed. So there's a challenge there working with you. But also I make my living and pay for my kids' dinner by selling you this bag of seed. So does it get touchy?
Not typically, no.
All right. Greg's the charge of the sales and marketing. So, Greg, I'm a farmer. I'm out here, and I've got a couple thousand acres, and you're going to come out here, and you're going to sell me stuff. What's your approach? The stuff's everywhere. There's a bunch of companies. Seems to me it's got to be a bit of a challenge, and I've been in sales. So what are you going to come out and tell me? What's going to be the difference?
So it's certainly a challenge, and there are tons of options out there, and Eric referenced it, but there's research that says that the average farmer has 6 seed companies calling on him on every year trying to sell him seed. But and Tracy touched on it a little bit too. One of the things that we pride ourselves on in the FS system is our crop specialists, our salesmen, know a grower's farm in many instances just as well, if not better than that farmer, because they're making recommendations, and in a lot of instances, variable rate fertilizer, so they know every acre what's being applied to that acre, so they know where the good management zones are within a field and the bad management zones are. They know the crop protection, the chemistry that's going to go on that acre, and then they can give a really good proposal and give a good seed that's going to match up with everything that they've got going on there.
Yeah, so your thinking is from the standpoint of your company, you are crop protection and fertility, so you're saying, hey, man, we're already touching your acres. We're seeing it from the fertility side, from the crop protection and chemistry side, so we obviously have a pretty good leg up on this. We know what's happening, and why don't you also entrust us with your seed side? So you kind of bring the package.
Correct.
Okay, well, what if you were the sales and marketing manager for another company that doesn't have that?
Yeah, well, and that's
yeah,
that's one of the things we battle. So as much as we have the knowledge of that overall acre, you've also got a lot of growers that are going to say, "Man, I'm giving you all the fertilizer and chemicals. I got the guy down the road selling somebody else. I'm going to give him some business too."
Eggs in one basket is kind of sometimes a bad thing. I know that you'd like to say, "Here's the benefit of that," and then if I'm the farmer, say, "Man, I don't know. All my eggs are in one basket." Is there a negative to that? I don't know.
So that would be why we have system-supported brands, our national brands, so that all your eggs aren't in one basket. So maybe it's the simplicity of having all your inputs coming from one supplier. But, having additional brands, we've got flexibility in the genetic packages we offer, in the trait packages we offer. And so we can really tailor our recommendations to exactly what that grower wants to do.
Yeah, you're saying that one of your strengths is that you've got plenty of diversity. We can bring you this, we can bring you this. We got to that. Let's go talk about product. Mr. Eric, okay. I have been speaking at agricultural events for a long time, and I've worked with them in a consultative basis. I've even done some sales training and some things like that. My friend Joe Merschmann, who's not too far out of your geography, is a good regional brand. The Hubners occupy a lot of, they brand themselves as the Northeast, East Coast sort of stuff. They do a lot of dairies out like New York and Pennsylvania. So, I mean, I've got friendships and relationships. I've worked for all of the companies. I'm very fortunate, by the way. Thank you, dear listener and viewer, for being and client. So I've been around the seed a lot, and I see it. Where does this go? I mean, there's 4 chemical companies now, 4 of the bigs, and then you got your tier 2s like your FMCs and your Valents, and so the big 6 became the big 4. Are we going to see more consolidation in seed? Is it going to get to where there's 4 seed companies?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, right? Because I think no one can predict the future. But as you look at the rest of the industry, there has been a lot of consolidations. I mean, you look what's happened in the chemical world. You look what's happened. I say, like you said, the big 6 going to big 4. Those big 4, right? 3 of the big 4 are very heavily involved in the genetics and breeding. And again, that's a lot of stuff filters from those 3 companies as you look at going down the breeding pipelines.
And there's one chemical company that's pretty darn big. They're called BASF, and they don't do seed.
Yep.
So then there was this rumor a few years ago, well, then what are they going to do? Just buy a bunch of seed companies, and then all of a sudden the 4 chemical companies also have the 4 big seed companies? Is that something?
Well, you hear that out there, right? Because if you think of that one, BASF, they have gotten the bean market a little bit, right? With the Credens brand and then their Extavio brand on the E3s. So they've got
E3. Hey, you're doing that vernacular thing. And remember, some of us are still back here. We're still back here with Basagran, okay?
Yeah. So Enlist E3, which that brings tolerance to glyphosate, glufosinate, and 2,4-D. So the big one, the 2,4-D, part of that system. But they got involved with that. But I think that corn brand, right? They're looking for that corn brand to be sort of match up with the other big 3 and having some brands out there. But when you think of the consolidation, all these different seed companies, there's a lot of regional. We're regional in our house brands. We're a regional seed company, and there's a lot of regional seed brands out there.
Yeah, and I've worked for a bunch of them, and I love them, and they're good. And they tend to have a real good, like to your point, they have a pretty devoted and devout following. If you talk to some of these regional companies, you're like, you know what? We really like working with them, and they've got great products. Are their products great? They must be. I mean, they're still in business. Are there any shitty companies still around?
No, I think every seed company, right? Every seed company has some positive stories to say. That's why they're in business. If they weren't, they would be out of business. I says that the reality is, and we pride ourselves in our system, is what Greg was alluding to, right? It's our crop specialist. And Greg's talking about the value of our system. Tracy talked about the value of selling seed. It's relationship based. A lot of the success we have is those relationship crop specialists have with their growers. is no different than some of those seed companies where they're successful, right? It really comes down to that salesman's relationship with the growers and helping that grower become more profitable.
I like Tracy. She and I had a beer when I got here last night to this conference, and we talked about the seed business. So, Tracy, take the mic. I've got a relationship with you, let's say, and I like your work ethic, and you obviously are smart, and you know the difference between Pewamo blunt, Pewamo silt loam, and blunt Miami, whatever the soil map says. You're a soil person. You get it. I have a relationship with you. You bring me out a product, and I say, I got 6 bushels less per acre with your stuff than with the other guys. Now what?
So I think we start to problem solve, figure out why that was. First of all, was it something related to the seed, or was it some outlying factor? So a lot of times, weather obviously is one of the biggest factors that we deal with. And so we just work to try to figure out what happened and make sure we don't run into that scenario in the future.
Okay, so everybody, that you drive down the road and you see these, plots out there with all the signs. Don't they all end up pretty much yielding the same?
No. No, there are big differences in those plots.
And then those plots, then, does that mean that the poor sucker that's like, man, something happened over here, he's never going to sell there again, right?
So I always look for trends. I mean, me personally, I try to put out enough plots that I get a good look at all of the products. And if I see something that's towards the bottom in all the plots, then that one becomes maybe something that I focus less on, or I learn specifically where that hybrid will excel. And then I look for the products that do well across a wide area, and those seem to be the ones that get the best recommendations to the farmers.
Let's talk about geography. Greg, you cover, what did we say there, 14, 15, however many states, a lot of states. Big difference from one place to the next. What's the person in Delaware want that the person in Indiana or southern Illinois says, no, I don't want any of that stuff? What's the difference between all these places?
So I would say the biggest thing that, and to be clear, just in the last year, we've picked up probably 7 of those states that we're now dealing with. And so we've had expansion into the East Coast, Mid-Atlantic. And
from a
and
distribution
Southeast.
and retail standpoint.
Correct.
And then you're still taking your house brands there?
Yep. And so that's one of the things that we learned is, historically we've been an Illinois, Iowa, Wisconsin company. And so we can really focus on bringing high-performing products that are going to blow the doors off anything from a yield perspective. Well, what we're learning as we go into the Virginias and the Carolinas, there's not necessarily a lot of real productive ground in those states, as productive as there is here.
You mean in terms of number of acres, or just the percentage of it doesn't have the degree of productivity that we have here?
Correct. And so the
There's a bunch of average and below average acres there, is what you're saying?
A bunch, yes.
If our listeners are from Virginia and the Carolinas, they're saying, screw you, pal!
So I'd give you the example. So when we first brought on those geographies, I talked to the field sales agronomist in Virginia, and I said, here in the Midwest, we're thinking about bringing on some tough acre products. Do you have tough acres in your geography? He said, compared to Illinois, I'd say 75% of my geography is tough acres compared to Illinois.
There's a reason that when they do the crop report, they always talk about the I states, the I being Iowa, Indiana, Illinois, because, there's some acres in Virginia, but we talk about productivity here. We got that. So you're saying that you're selling a different kind of a product because you need something that performs on tough acres, as you called them, and that's where you're going to be ramping up a different kind of a product down there.
Yep. And so when we look at, as one of the things we pride ourselves as a regional brand is, we're going to have products for the Midwest, but as we move into those geographies, we're going to bring specific products that won't work in Central Illinois,
right?
But they work really well in the Central Carolinas or in the Virginias.
Got it. Rapid fire here. Okay, I want to talk about the future. Am I going to get bags of seed delivered to me via drone 5 years from now?
Probably, if you want it delivered that way, somebody will probably do it.
All right, pass the thing. We'll keep passing it. Eric, what thing is going to happen 5 years from now in the seed industry that nobody actually right now is thinking about or sees coming?
I don't know if they'll see it's coming, but I think it's still going to be the trait technology. As you look 5 years out, I mean, there's a few traits. There's some we don't even know what's going to be on the horizon, but there's a lot of new traits coming out. Herbicide tolerant traits. You think about corn and beans. We know what's here today, but we know there's some new options coming. There's going to be more tolerances, more options on the herbicide. Factor will be on both corn and beans.
Got it. So we're going to breed in and genetically engineer in more tolerance to stuff, so we can put the stuff in the ground and then fly over it with a spray coop, spray it, be done.
Yep.
My girl Tracy. We just talked a lot about herbicides and insecticides. Organic has got still a lot of push. Regenerative has a lot of push. Tell me about organic and regenerative and how that changes the seed business, because there is a growing push to be doing more cover crops, to be doing more regenerative practices, and the consumer, which drives everything that we do, even though a lot of ag people don't like to hear that, wants more organic stuff. Where's that take the seed business?
So there are options out there currently, and I think that's going to put a lot of us a little bit out of our comfort zone.
Just because it's a little different than what you've normally been doing.
Correct.
Most of the acres that you see, every acre you see, I'm assuming, is conventional.
Right. We've been focused on providing maximum yield and getting the most out of every acre, and the mindset has to shift a little bit to look at different production practices in order to make those things happen.
Got it. So are we going to see more organic and regenerative type seed? Is there going to be a bag that's specific to that?
Yes, there has to be, especially on the organic side. They do have to be labeled organic.
Or is your company going to have an option for me? If I say I'm switching to organic, I'm going to spend the next 3 years getting the stuff off my farm to do that?
I hope so. That's a question for Eric.
Perfect. Pass it over to Eric.
But
Eric.
I do get questions every year. I mean, this probably started within the last 2 years, getting that question every year now.
Okay, so I'm going to start transitioning my farm over to organic because I believe there's margins there. This year doesn't matter because the margins are good as is, but a lot of years I can make a lot more margin on organic. So it's going to take me 3 years to get USDA approval. Are you going to have a bunch of products for me 3 years from now, Eric, if I want to be your customer?
I think that's something we're currently evaluating because as we say to everything, if there's demand and there's a big enough demand, right, we'll look into it. If you think of our Envision brand, we do have some products out east. So the Envision brand out east, the product manager I work with out there, Mark Gutendorf, he does have some, I think there's 2 or 3 varieties in our Envision brand that are organic certified. So they've been diving into that because out east in that New York area, because the consumers, a lot more demand and traceability on products, right? So it's something we continue to evaluate, and as anything, right? If there's enough demand, we'll definitely look very hard into getting involved in it.
Nobody here has a moral issue or an opposition to any cropping system. It's all about doing what works and makes money, right?
You bet.
Let's pass it over to Greg. Greg, speaking of that, I am friends with Mr. Hubner, who has got the variety that is a brand that is pretty big in that Northeast. And he informed me that there's some legislation in New York about seed treatments. People listening to this, tell them real quickly what seed treatments are, because they don't realize this is not just a bag of corn like you could throw in your bowl and eat it. It's got some stuff done to it, right?
Yep.
Tell us about that, and then what you see happening in a regulatory environment that's going to change how you do what you do.
Yep. So from a corn perspective, every bag of corn that you purchase is going to have some fungicides and an insecticide on there to protect that seed from when it's planted until it sprouts and it starts to grow and in that early seedling part of its life. And then from a soybean perspective, in the Midwest here, I'd say probably somewhere around 80% of the soybeans that are planted are either going to have a fungicide or a fungicide and insecticide seed treatment on those. And again, even on top of what Tracy talked about the traits being able to help with rootworms and things like that, this is also another step where we're not putting as many insecticides in the ground while we're planting. We can put a much lower load of chemistry on that seed and still protect it instead of throwing a bunch in furrow.
So I was told about a month or so ago that the state of New York decided, and how this even comes up, I don't know. Who was in Albany at the state assembly and said, you know what we really need to do? We got to make it so you can't put seed treatments on crops that go in the ground. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Have you heard about this, and what do you see happening?
Yeah, so actually in Canada, they can't use what's called neonicotinoid seed treatments, so insecticides. And, there's talk in New York, there's talk in California, Oregon. So it's pretty much East Coast and West Coast. There's more of the talk about regulating those products. So, I think it's going to be something that we're going to have to continue to battle through. We have to do a good job as an industry to show what I was just talking about, the amount of active ingredient that we can put on a seed is so much less than what you've got to put in the ground to protect that seed. And
I get it, but you know what? You're talking about a hysteric environmentalist lobby that is pushing this. So you're saying that the treatments actually worked, but and they should not be banned. But it sounds like we're up against the thing, so it's going to get banned.
I think there's a very strong chance that they will be, and a lot of these chemical companies are looking at different chemistries, so getting away from the neonicotinoids, so that we've got a different option. But if you think about the agriculture business, I say it a lot, especially when things like this. One of the things I think we as an industry need to do better is be able to tell our story better. We always want to tell our story with science, and the other side is using emotion.
Wait a minute. You can tell he's been in my audience, can't you, dear listener and viewer?
But I mean, it's reality, and I always say in the battle between emotion and science, emotion is undefeated world champion.
There's no question. So are we gonna see a complete change? I mean, is it gonna happen fast? Like all of a sudden, it's like, holy crap! It was only a few years ago we did this. Now we're not anymore. Is that what's gonna happen to these products?
I think it's probably going to be slow at the beginning, but once they can get one product pulled, it's going to be a very rapid uptick.
Do yields suffer?
Yes.
Do we go for the first time ever of going backwards in terms of output per acre because of tools being taken out of our toolbox?
I most certainly think so.
I agree with that also. All right, we're going to wrap it up now. That was supposed to be rapid fire, but he just took a long time with that answer. All right, anything else that you need to cover that we did not talk about? Pass it over to Eric. Anything that I didn't ask when you think about the future of the seed? Because you know what? We're going to be putting the stuff in the ground. It's an expensive part of the thing. It's your business. Do you ever see a role where it gets to where we're spending less on seed because maybe we invent something, perennial corn, where you don't have to plant it every year?
Well, I like your optimism there, but I think the reality is you incorporate more benefits to the growers. That flexibility we talked about earlier, right? More traits, as more traits get incorporated in some of these products, and like I said, the more traits you get, probably the reality is it's going to be a little bit more pricey. You think a wheat's been pretty well standard, conventional wheat. You get hybrid wheats on the horizon. I'm sure hybrid wheat comes out. There's going to be a little additional cost on that, but between the new genetics, the breeding, the research, the R&D is unreal. When you talk to those big four, the big three, really on the seed side, the R&D dollars are enormous to bring these new traits and these new genetics out. So with that investment, right, I see I'm hoping it slows down a little bit, right? I hope it gets even, but I think with the new traits and technologies, you're going to continue to see seeds probably keep increasing.
Tracy, you're a 35-year-old woman, and so the person out here in these hallways at this conference that's 65 that thinks they've been there and done it, and they're kind of getting stale, let's face it. You're a little more young, you're a little more vibrant. What do you see that the other people aren't seeing, where this industry goes? What happens with seed, what happens with ag, chemical, everything we talked about. You got some predictions? Observations?
I think that even in my, I'm going to say short tenure, even though it hasn't really been that short, it's been astounding the way we've improved our yields. I started in this business, I'll say 15 years ago, and where we've come from where we've been is just phenomenal. As far as moving forward, I mean, things are always changing, and I'm not really great at predicting the future, but I think about that a lot, and I've got a lot of years left in this business, so I think about what will things look like in 20 years, and I don't have a good answer.
I guess not. You can't end a podcast on that, for God's sakes. All right, last question from my man Greg, since he's the one that got me lined up on all this. What did we not discuss? What did we not talk about? What thing did we not cover in this episode that you think we should when it comes to seed? We talked about big picture and the consolidation, which you say is going to continue. And we got, what else?
So I think one of the things that, not specific to corn and soybeans, but if you look at cover crops, I think cover crops are going to be huge in the next few years. And we're really supportive of that. I think it's really good. If we can make a step towards that regenerative piece by using some more cover crops and maybe not have to jump completely in to going organic, I think it's a really good step for the environment and for our industry.
I agree with that we do the best practice of all. Cover cropping during the off-season protects our soil, puts nutrients back in many ways that brings the nutrients up to the usable horizon. So I'd agree with that. So you think that your company is going to be selling, in addition to your normal corn, soybeans, wheat, alfalfa, you're going to be selling bags of cover crop seed?
Absolutely.
What's
yeah,
going to be in those bags?
So it's going to vary by where you're at. In Illinois, we're looking at a lot of oats and radish or rye, the turnips.
You can't sell this for $350 a bag.
No.
Okay.
No, it's not going to be making a ton of money, but it's going to be good for the environment.
A lot of soil, and it's going to
Correct.
be good for the environment. I see it coming. Do you see it being regulated?
Potentially, yeah. I think it's very likely.
I do too. All right, he's Greg Fonger. He's Eric West. She's Tracy Harmon. They're with the wonderful company FS, a client of mine where I'm speaking at their sales meetings, but also I wanted to bring them in because we got good coverage, if you will. Sales and marketing over about 14 states. Product manager, seeing stuff for the last 20 years. Boots on the ground at 10 counties in Illinois, where she's actually at the, where the seed hits the soil, if you will. So I thought it was a really good perspective. Thanks for being on here. Good answers, good outlook, good perspective, good analysis. And you only have one crappy answer. I mean, Tracy, that's not bad. I mean, let's face it. If you have one bad acre, I mean, that's all right, right? You can still make a living that year. Anyway, I'm Damian Mason. This is episode number 200. Please share this around. Please take this and share it with your friends, your non-ag friends. Share all of them, because over 200 episodes, we've had, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of listens, which is fantastic. And I also want to thank my sponsor, Land Trust. You're going to hear from them, but Land Trust being a sponsor, I really appreciate it. And if there's anything at all you want to see in the next 200 episodes, send me a little note and say, hey, Damian, you've never covered this topic. Please bring on a guest that will talk about this, because after all, we're here to help you think about and succeed in the future of agriculture. Till next time, I'm Damian Mason with the good people of FS. Thank you. It's the Business of Agriculture.
Thank you for tuning into the Business of Agriculture podcast, sponsored by Land Trust. Land Trust partners with farmers and ranchers to capture pure profit from sportsmen seeking new experiences and places to hunt and fish. Land Trust built the platform and does the marketing. You maintain 100% control of access and activities, and you set the rules. There's no cost or obligation when you list, and the next 10 Business of Agriculture listeners who go to landtrust.com/BOA are eligible for a gift worth over $2,000.